Right, hello everyone. It's been a while since the last video. Apologies for that, but today we'll be commentating and talking a bit about GG Aleste 3. So this is on the M2 Shot Triggers Aleste collection that came out a couple of years ago now, actually. Time sure flies. So I'll basically be commentating my 1cc of the normal difficulty with slowdown off, using, beyond that, the default settings, besides that the slowdown is off. Yeah, so maybe a bit of background about this game. I picked up this collection quite a while ago, but, when I realized that it was kind of a collection of console shmups, it was something that kind of was pushed to the back end, I think just because I had a bias for arcade-style shmups at the time. Amongst some other things that I'll talk about a bit later regarding the game design. But long story short, I decided to give this game, another try, and GG Aleste 3, I've come to develop more of an appreciation for, now that I've had some time with it. So just to give you some details about how the game works, since this is stage 1 and things are relatively straightforward. So this game is only really operated by a single button, which is your shot button, plus the directional buttons, of course. And so the way it works is that you get score extends that are shown to you what the thresholds are by an M2 gadget in the top left. You get invincibility frames by picking up power-up items, those P, rectangles that you see on the screen, as well as weapon changing. So that's cool. If you pick up enough power-up items, you upgrade your shot, so your main shot, as well as get a shield if you collect enough of them. So it's a threshold, I think it's 20 or so. If you pick up 20 or so, then you can take an extra hit basically on that life. The number of P items that you need to upgrade your shot type is on the top right of the screen as well. You can see it's next level 2 out of 32. So what you'll notice is also that there is this system of changing your weapons within this game, and I think this is something that is a mainstay of the Aleste games. So depending on the letter of the power-up item as it cycles through, you can change your shot type. So here I have what's called the Chain Chaser, so that's represented by C. And you can see that's just a really strong homing shot. And basically this is the main shot that, if you're just looking for a survival clear, this is really all you need. It's just so powerful. You can see how I don't even really need to aim very much. I just need to focus on dodging and staying alive. And, you're able to also do damage in addition to playing very safe. With all that background out of the way, let me say one thing about this game. It's a 7-stage long game. You get a lot of extends. I think you can get up to 8 or 9, given how well you score. And the runtime is pretty long. I think it's about 35 to 40 minutes. So I think these aspects, initially put me off the game, just because the length was a little bit longer than what I would prefer. And the amount of extends, it just is a little bit different than what I was used to. In addition, the power-ups that you see, or the power-ups for the weapon types, is also something that I didn't quite click with at first, because when you die, actually, your weapon power goes down. And so you have this kind of dichotomy where you can feel like the stages are really easy, and then taking a death somewhere, powering down, can spiral quickly into a number of chain deaths and into, making the game feel much harder, because now you're, at such low power that you're not really destroying things at the rate with which you're used to. Things get more polluted on the screen, and then you take more unnecessary deaths. So it's very easy to chain death in this game, and taking a hit at the wrong time can mean the difference between a stage being really easy and really hard. So that swingy nature was something that I had to get used to as well. Although now that I think about it and I've spent more time with the game, I realize that for a Game Gear shmup like this is and was designed for, that's probably where the M2, tried to incorporate some of the challenge, because, with the size of the hitbox, the slowness of the bullets and the sparsity of the patterns, they're really not trying to introduce difficulty in the area of, Danmaku, right, where you're kind of just threading the needle and weaving through these intricate bullet patterns. Instead, the difficulty comes from, being very consistent and carrying up your shot type and your power-ups as deep into the game as possible. And you'll see that in stages 6 and 7, that's when you really, really need it. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on screen, because we haven't really done that yet. So this is the stage 2 boss. It's going to show a really dangerous pattern that, you have to watch out for, which is going to be this one right here. If you see it's like red head, like blink twice, it's going to shoot this one, and you really want to stay offline with it. After you dodge that pattern, you can see that it's going to, it's going to pull back and then try to stab you, right? And then come to the bottom of the screen like this. So what you want to do is go towards the bottom and then the direction of the arm that it pulls back, because it's going to go, let's say it pulls back its left arm, it's going to go towards the bottom left of the screen. So in order to avoid that, you have to then pull to, your right or its left. So just watch the video again and you'll see the way to avoid that. But once you kind of understand how to dodge it, it's really easy. But, it's going to get you on your first time, obviously, because you don't know that it's going to, pull up right next to you and, and basically ram into you. Okay, so one thing that I forgot to mention is that in order to power up your secondary weapon, which again here is the homing attack, the chain chaser, right? You have to pick up these P items. So not only is there like the item drop, but there's also the P items that get dropped. If you're at max power, it actually gives you 5,000 points, which is really nice. It helps you get closer to that next score extent. So that's, from what I understand, that's where a lot of optimizations of the score comes from, is picking up the P items when you're at max power, picking up items of the same type, secondary weapons of the same type that you have currently equipped, that gives you 1,000 points, and destroying as many enemies as possible. One thing that's worth mentioning is that in the earlier stages, even if you take an early death or a hit somewhere, usually the bullet patterns aren't dense enough such that you can't recover. So in other words, even if you take an early death in the first couple stages, it's not a big deal, because it gives you enough breathing room that you can recover your shot power, etc. So usually the first 4 to 5 stages are a breeze. That's not really the case in the latter stages, obviously, because it's going to get quickly too much to handle with a lower shot type. But what this does to the game is that, it kind of creates a little bit of a waiting room, right? Where you're kind of going through the first 4 stages, which takes about 15 or so minutes, without any real semblance of danger or any real worry. And you're kind of then just waiting to get to the latter stages to see if that's the time that you can clear or not. If you pull off the strategies that you need to in stages 6 and 7, then you clear. If not, then you don't. But, it doesn't really matter how you perform in the stages prior to that. And to some extent, I'm not really a fan of that sort of thing. I think that, one pretty critical aspect of arcade design is that every kind of moment counts, right? Every single stage is engaging and interesting. And perhaps this is a reflection of the difference between this being a console shmup and the arcade shmups I'm used to, but that's definitely a critique I have of this game. You can kind of see how much, not respect, but how much I'm paying attention to what's happening on the screen, because if you just use the chain chaser, upgrade your main shot and upgrade the chain chaser to max power, then really a lot of these sections of the game shouldn't give you that much trouble. And even if they do and you take a hit, it's not really the end of the world because you can easily recover. There's enough time in between where, you know, the next time you take a hit, well, you have your shield up already. Or you have 4 extends, as I have now. Yeah. So maybe to say a little bit about the weapons that aren't Chain Chaser. I think one interesting thing about the other weapons is that depending on the weapon, they may or may not destroy enemy bullets. So the Chain Chaser is kind of this all-in option where you sacrifice some of that defensive capability for really just some of the best offense that you can have. But, you know, for example, if you get the A weapon, for example, which, to be honest, I don't really remember what the name of it is for, maybe like all range or something, what it stands for. But the A weapon actually destroys bullets that the C weapon doesn't, right? Same is the case for the napalm or the F weapon. So in some sense, you'll see later in the run that I rely on the A weapon in order to get through an otherwise difficult section, survival-wise. So that's a way in which you can use these weapons to your advantage. One quick note about this pattern: the the fire on the floor, from those mortars actually linger for a while. So you really don't want to move too much when you avoid those, because you can run into the fire and then take a hit. That's a pretty common mistake that I was making before I kind of intentionally made sure not to move around that much. So I think every weapon has its own uses, and there are some really great sections of the game where you can, see the strengths of that weapon exemplified. Except maybe D, which is kind of this defensive shield. Basically, there are these crystals that revolve around you and are meant to stop a lot of bullets. But the funny thing about that one is it doesn't stop all the bullets. So it really doesn't make a lot of sense. In the aspect, or it doesn't make sense that it does that, or to use that over other weapons that provide some measure of defense, but also allow for much better offense. Sorry, I kind of flubbed some of my words there, just because, at least on my screen right now, when I picked up the rising laser is what they call it, only one of the cannons seemed to visually fire here. Maybe that's a product of only rendering this video at 30 FPS, so apologies for that. You can see here that in most cases, if I have a weapon that isn't the Chain Chaser, I picked it up by mistake. Because, these weapon boxes are huge, right? Chances are you're going to be focusing on something else, avoiding a bullet, and then run into a weapon that isn't the one you want. But, the weapon drops are frequent enough that it's usually not that much of a problem. One thing that I want to point out about this section here is there's going to be the same type of problem where you see those large, slow-moving, flame balls, or these fireballs. The explosion again lingers. You can see it right there again. So while avoiding the smaller bullets, you really want to move very slowly so that you don't accidentally run into these the residue of the fireballs. This game has, it's a Game Gear shmup, so I don't fault it too much, but sometimes visibility is a little weird, right? So moving as slowly as possible minimizes your chances of making that mistake, running into a fireball, residual explosion of a fireball that you had a hard time seeing. That's just my approach to that section. Okay, so, we're just making our way along here. Nothing super pressing. See that I have about 5 extends at the bank now, which is always good. I'm at max shot power, so my main shot is as strong as it can be. You see that it fires at a pretty fast rate. And my Chain Chaser, secondary weapon level, is also at max, so I'm in a really good position here. You can see that I'm staring at the screen right now, and it's actually pretty hard to see those blue and red flashing bullets, especially part of that, mini boss battle. So of this mini boss fight, or this mid boss fight, excuse me. So, you know, that's just a way to exemplify. Yeah, you know, there's some visibility issues. You just have to be really careful. At least I have visibility issues. So with that mid boss out of the way, we're just, you know, basically in the waiting room for taking on the final boss of this stage. Yeah. And here it is. Not too much of note with this boss, but you really don't want to stay in the middle, right? So you can see that there's, yeah, it shoots these, like, you know, sequence of 3 shots from the middle. You just want to be on the sides. Note that these blue and green bubbles actually slow you down and cause your movement to be very weird, right? So one thing that I learned from watching videos online is just to tap dodge as much as possible, because then, you know, you're kind of accounting for when the bubbles wear off, and then you suddenly start moving really fast. So usually how this boss gets you is that you get hit by a bubble, you start holding the control stick in left or right direction because you want to avoid a bullet. Then the bubble wears off, and then you run into a bullet. So just tap dodging alleviates that problem. So that was a tip that I saw in another Clear video. Although I don't remember exactly who was the author of that video. Okay, so this is stage 5. It starts to get a little bit more difficult here, but I think stage 5 is really cool because there is a section that's coming up in a bit where, you know, it's not something that I've seen before. It's really unique, and I think it really only works in a game like this. So I think in that sense, it really plays to its strength. I'll talk about that more in a little bit. I think another thing I'll say is that stage 5 it's really important to use the chain chaser. I mean, you don't really need to use the chain chaser in the other stages just because there's a lot of flexibility in how you route, you know, the weapons. You can get there without any. You can get far with any weapon, but here in stage 5, the chain chaser is really important. You can see exactly why here. There are these enemy ships that come towards you, you know, try to track with your movements while you're kind of flying directly upwards or flying kind of upwards, right? You're basically flying up along this gigantic tower, and so you might not be able to tell, but my movements, you know, when I kind of pull my stick in a direction, left or right or up or down, it pulls me back to the center. And the reason for that is because you can kind of see that it's emulating the effect that my ship is kind of pulled by the centrifugal force, right? And is kind of sticking to this, essentially like a pipe. So if you've ever played like F-Zero, right? You remember those sections where you're kind of on this cylindrical pipe and you're kind of driving and looping around it. You can imagine the same thing is here, and they kind of alter the physics to emulate that effect. So I think that's really cool because it's not something I've ever noticed before. I gotta be honest, if this was in like a cave game, I would be pretty upset because in those games, it's really, really important to not have any sort of momentum, to have precise control over your character, because that's entirely what that game is about. But for a game like this, where, you know, you're at max power, you have a really overpowered weapon like the chain chaser, you know, and like, you know, you have more room to experiment, I think. And I think this is really one innovative way that they did this. Because look, like, I'm still fighting for my life here. You know, these ships are kind of also looping around the cylinder. We're kind of you know, veering into one another. We're trying to avoid being hit by one another. You can see I'm dodging them. Just had a quick dodge there as they kind of come up and pull towards me and pull away. I think it's just a really cool idea. Obviously, you can see now why the chain chaser is really good in this stage, because you know, oftentimes when these ships chase you, they're going to be behind you, under you, right? And they might swoop over you for a bit, but the chain chaser, you know, bullets are going to be looping under you to attack those ships, even if you're above, so you can kill them a lot faster, and that's what's really important. This is the mid boss. You know, nothing too bad. Just focus on dodging. the bullets kind of boomerang a little bit, but once you get hit by it, the first time that you see it, it's easy to deal with. Okay, so now that we're in space, apparently, this centrifugal effect has worn off, so now we have full control over our ship again. This is just the lead. This is just the lead up to the stage 5 boss. Alright, so we're getting up to the stage 5 boss. This one is pretty interesting, because, as you'll see in a second, the first part of the fight does not include your secondary weapon. You can see here that the first thing the boss does is it takes away your power-up. So basically, you can't use your secondary weapon. Of course, because my shot power is at max level, it's, not too much of a challenge, but you'll see. So this pattern, the easiest way to dodge it is to just go left and right, as you saw on my screen. This one, it's kind of like your, Pink Sweets pattern, right? Where you just have to make sure that you're threading the needle between the lasers. This one, you just have to make sure that you're not putting yourself in a bad position. Just do a tap dodge, nothing major. It's easier when the two balls are on the same side of the screen, not opposite sides of the screen, but overall it's not so bad. Here, the purple balls linger, right? The explosion lingers, so gotta be wary of that again. And, with that, the final boss, or the stage 5 boss dies. So, it died pretty quick. Your experience may differ than mine. If, for example, you took a hit earlier in the run, then maybe it'll take longer for the stage 5 boss to go down. But, I think I showcased the way to handle each of those patterns. So, really, it's kind of a wall at first, but practice the patterns a bit. There's a trick to them, right? And you'll quickly see that, they're not so bad at all. There's very little in this game that relies on raw dodging capability, and it's mostly just about A is memorization, and B is just not messing up in a bad place. That's where the difficulty comes from, really. If you die at a bad spot, you're going to quickly chain death and lose the run. But if you manage to, make yourself consistent by memorizing as much as possible about enemy firing patterns, where certain things appear, what weapon to have at what time, then, you can really mitigate a lot of that challenge. I think that's a good thing in a lot of respects, especially for a game like this where, as I mentioned before, you might be limited by the amount of bullets you can put on screen. You might not want to go with that Danmaku arcade design. Yeah, so, that's just something to keep in mind. Again, you can see I'm just sticking with the Chain Chaser. This is a section where you have kind of a battleship on your left or your right that's shooting bullets towards you, and then you have enemies coming in from the middle as well. But with the Chain Chaser, it really doesn't matter. The bullets your bullets fire and track them everywhere. Be careful of this mid-boss. It's once you hear the sound cue of it like whirring up, you just want to not be directly under it like that, and then it dies really easily. Okay, so in this section, just be wary. Some enemies come up from... Oh, am I thinking about the right place? No, actually, sorry. I'm jumping the gun a little bit. These two enemies are a little bit, scary because they kind of track to your position, and then they fire bullets that do this tri-spread pattern. So when two of them come on the screen, you really want to make sure that you have a shield, and try to play as scared as possible. Again, I keep saying this, but the Chain Chaser makes it really easy to play scared, right? You can be on the complete opposite end of the screen and still do damage to the enemy, which really comes in handy for those large, enemies when two of them comes at once and then they try to track your position. Okay, so this section is a good candidate for using not the Chain Chaser because, as you can see, these blue and red bullets that, the flashing blue and red bullets that are put out by a lot of the enemies here, a couple weapon types actually destroy them. For example, both the A weapon type and the F weapon type destroy those types of bullets. So, you can, if that's your preference, you can actually do less dodging here than what I'm doing now. Of course, I'm so strong at this point with my max shot power and my max Chain Chaser power that you know, this section is still like easier than it would otherwise be. But, you know, it might be worth learning how to go through this section with an alternate weapon, especially if you don't go in at max power. This is kind of the ideal case where, because I haven't made a mistake yet, it makes this section way easier than if I had lower shot power, right? Then maybe some more precise survival strats would be more of a consideration. Here again, you see the fireballs lingering. One important thing to note about this mid-boss is that you can see these, you know, triangular prisms. There's 3 of them on the left and right side. They actually shoot suicide bullets. You can see it just fired some suicide bullets. So when you avoid this like laser whip from the main, you know, the main body of the mid-boss, you don't really want to be shooting at those suicide bullet triangular prisms because they don't get sealed, right? They're gonna point blank and hit you. So if you rewind that part to see exactly what I did, you'll see that when I'm avoiding the laser whip, I stop shooting if I'm directly in front of one of those suicide pattern firing triangular prisms, just because, you know, I don't want to get point blanked. That's a mid-boss that I would recommend save stating and practicing, just because it's hard to describe with words, but once you're aware of the suicide bullets and the cadence in which that laser whip fires, then you can get that part really consistent. But if you know, aren't used to those things, then that mid-boss can be really challenging. More challenging than this stage 6 boss, actually. Okay, so here is just the very standard, you know, pattern. We've seen it in many different places, like Espluda, for example. You know, no problems there. For this pattern, a bunch of triangles start to form, or sorry, diamonds, and the only thing that you want to be wary of is if they appear right next to you, because they home directly at your sprite. So they're very easy to avoid, but you just don't want to, you know, you don't want to have any unwelcome surprises if one spawns on top of you. This is kind of a, you know, pretty simple pattern. Just try to be on the direct opposite edge of the circle and have an idea of your escape route, and you're able to avoid that with no problem. Chain Chaser is also really important there, just because you can do damage to it while being underneath it, for example. You know, another reason why that weapon is pretty overpowered. Okay, stage 7. Really, really important for you to be high power here, because it makes this starting section way easier. Basically, this is like a DPS check, right? Where these battleships start to pollute the screen with bullets. It starts to, like, you know, fly around. Really annoying. But if you have max power, then they die really quickly. And it makes this next section much, much easier. So what you'll quickly see is the battleships start stacking on top of each other. So that makes it really important to speed kill as many as possible. So here you'll see there's going to be 2 of them at once, right? If you're at max power, one of them dies really quick, then you just have to worry about the other one. No problem at all. Now here you have 3, right? But actually no, you only have 2, because you killed one of them already. You can just imagine if you had chain death in stage 6, going into this stage with low power, you're absolutely screwed. You might as well restart. Or try to, you know, sacrifice as many lives as possible to that starting section, because you just can't kill those things fast enough. Maybe that's another critique I have. You know, you're so reliant on the power-ups, and, you know, I already said this, so it's not a new critique, but you're so reliant on the power-ups that's a very good example, the start of stage 7, where it's essentially a DPS check. You know, are you at significant enough power to be able to get through this? Yes. You know, you're through, no challenge at all. No? Well, be prepared to fight like hell then. You know, I'm sure there's a way to get that consistent with, like, level 1 shot power, right? As weak as you can. I'm sure there's a way to do that, but, you know, it just illustrates how much more difficult it is when you're at low shot power. Okay, here you can see I switched to shot type A, all range secondary. This is what I mean by there are some sections where it's made a lot easier by, you know, a certain secondary weapon. Look at what I'm doing here. I'm basically sitting in the middle of the screen, not moving. And you can see that any of the blue and white or blue and red flashing bullets that the enemies are shooting towards me gets caught by my secondary shot. and I'm speed killing the tanks that come in the middle. The reason for this is because if I don't speed kill the tanks that come in the middle, then they shoot a pretty dangerous pattern that you have to then dodge. But basically, here, I've created a safe spot for myself, where I'm just sitting at the bottom left of the screen, and I'm shooting upwards. I'm destroying all the bullets from side enemies that come my way, and I'm speed killing the tank. If you don't learn any other strategy with the secondary weapon that isn't Chain Chaser, I would recommend learning this one, because this section is otherwise pretty difficult, even at max power. But, you know, using this strategy, it trivializes it, basically. So with this, it makes it really easy to, you know, get through an otherwise pretty difficult part of Stage 7. I didn't mention this when it happened before, but there are enemies that come from the bottom of the screen on this stage, so just be aware where they come out, because you can, you know, get clipped by them if you're not careful. So having this turret gun, a secondary weapon, is not intentional. I accidentally made a mistake there, so now I have the rising laser. Okay, you can see that the rising laser is only showing up on my right side, which is kind of weird. I think it is a symptom of the FPS, but there should be one on both sides. Just make that known. Or if you looked at the bottom right of the screen, you can see what it should look like in the gadget. Here, I'm essentially scrambling to get the Chain Chaser back. You can see I just got it. Bit of an unfortunate death there. You know, part of what makes Stage 7 hard is also this section, where you can really get point blanked by a lot of these ground turrets, which is a little bit annoying. But that's okay, because we're well on our way to making this clear. This is the last mid-boss before the Stage 7 final boss. At this point, I've only died once, so, you know, it's looking to be a pretty good... it's looking pretty good, the situation is. So this boss is really weird. I mean, I don't really understand it, to be honest. I don't really know what they were going for. But basically, the head, that red triangle that's leading the rest of the snake, basically it's like a game of Snake, right? It shoots that like flower pattern of bullets, and then it goes underwater and kind of lays these bombs. And basically all you need to do is shoot the head. That's all you need to do. And I don't really know how long it stays on the screen or how many iterations of blowing it up it goes through. But yeah, I mean, you don't really need to think too hard. Just make sure you avoid the flower patterns of bullets and the bombs that it lays down, and you should be good. Basically, I think, like, what I understand is that that's just a way to build up your shield, basically. It's like killing time. Or I guess that's the purpose of that mid-boss, if I had to guess. Here, you know, you don't really have to make it too complicated. Those enemies, like, you know, shoot out a bullet only if you hit them, so why not just not shoot anything and not, you know, not produce those, make it so they don't produce those bullets? That makes that section really simple. Okay, so I feel like I've been talking for a while, so finally we get to the final boss. This pattern is really simple. If you've played a Danmaku game at all, you should have no problem. It's just, you know, shooting from the top left, top right sides. You have plenty of time to react. This next part, the final boss is going to be shooting these, like, you know, series of enemies like this. It's always fixed, so you just need to memorize where to stand when it fires these enemies, and you should be good. You should be able to perfect them. And basically that gives you a lot of score. So if you kill all the enemies in this section, it gives you, what is it, 50,000? And, you know, you get, that goes towards your next score extent, which is really nice. There you go, 50,000 points. Okay, once that part is gone, or is done, you know, you transition to the final phase. So here you can see that it produces these two eyes that kind of shoot this laser beam that goes down directly downwards onto the screen. Just make sure you're not sitting below them. You know, if you have the Chain Chaser, should be no problem. Just shoot, you know, the boss, and eventually this phase will end, like so. Okay, now I'll just shoot a bunch of diamonds at you. I would just practice this part because it's always kind of does the same thing. Basically, you just want to, you know, Okay, well, sorry, there's a lot of stuff going on. But basically, it's going to shoot diamonds really fast at you. But the way you dodge them is always the same. So just save state it and practice dodging it. No problem at all. You can see I didn't even have to go through another phase of that in order to kill it and get the clear. Yeah, so I ended the game with 11 extends, it seems. I only died once, so almost a no miss, which is really nice. Yeah, and that was my time with GG Aleste 3. That was my clear. If I had any parting thoughts, I think I really, gave a lot of my thoughts on this game already, just because the first couple stages weren't too eventful. But if I were to summarize, I think the game, presentation-wise, is outstanding. I mean, look at this pixel art. It's really, I don't know, it's really unparalleled in that regard, especially for considering, this is a Game Gear game made in 2020, right? I think there's a lot to praise about just the right factors that went into the production of this game, and I think that's something really to be applauded. Again, the music, actually this is the first time I've talked about the music, but it's really just amazing. I mean, this is by Manabu Namiki, right? So he's a veteran shmup artist, and it really comes through here. I mean, the tunes, the chip tunes in this game, honestly, like, I'm not a fan of listening to chip tunes, like, not in a video game, just because, it's a little bit grating on the ears if you're just, like, at the gym, if you're in the, if you're in the car listening to the radio. But this is something that, I could honestly consider, or I can honestly see myself listening to just on the day-to-day, and I think, from me, that's really high praise. So why am I saying all this? I'm saying this because I think, despite all of the complaints that, you might, that you've heard me talking about this throughout the last 36 minutes or so, I really enjoy this game, I think. I mean, not I think. I know, I really enjoyed this game. Of course, I have to qualify that because I did say all these negative things about it. I think that really just comes from the console arcade design. The power-up focused survival that, that this game is based around. The power-up based difficulty where a death in the wrong place can lead to chain deaths that can lead to increased difficulty. But if you don't make those mistakes, then the game becomes comparatively very easy. I think those are my main gripes with the game. Again, I don't fault it, because really, how else do you incorporate difficulty into a Game Gear shmup? I honestly don't know the answer. They chose this route, and, I can see why. And I can say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, all things considered, yeah, I mean, if you incorporate the strategies that I kind of talked through a bit, especially in the latter stages, I think, this is a pretty simple, pretty straightforward clear that, anyone can really approach. I mean, I know that, arcade shmups, it's pretty tough. That's not something those aren't something that I would say that anyone can clear, right? But this is a game where, given the dedication to memorizing the specific, problem areas, I think it's a very comfortable clear for anyone who's interested in learning more about this game, or is interested in doing a survival clear of this game. I honestly believe that, and I think that's a really good thing. I think that's exactly what M2 aimed for when developing it. Yeah, so this is just the end visualization that you get for clearing the game on normal difficulty. And yeah, I think that about concludes my time with it, or our time here. Really appreciate your attention. Sorry if this video was a little bit rambly. I had to kind of adjust, given the 40-minute nature of this video, right? So, yeah, hope that wasn't too, jarring. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Really appreciate your time. Peace.